Wikipedia describes a guilty pleasure as something such as a film, a television program, a piece of music, or an activity that one enjoys despite understanding that it is not generally held in high regard or is seen as unusual or weird. Well, this seems a little backwards in today's age where people are more open to the idea of unconventional hobbies or interests. And yet the guilty pleasure tagline continues to stick around. Well, since it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, now is the perfect opportunity to celebrate it in all its bizarre glory. The following movies all came out within the last few years and could all be described as offbeat for one reason or another. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture, and here are the 10 best recent guilty pleasure horror movies you probably missed. Number 10, Spoonful of Sugar. Spoonful of Sugar is sadly not a movie where Mary Poppins goes on a rampage and starts impaling people with her umbrella. Although, that's actually not a bad idea. Instead, it is a 2022 movie directed by Mercedes Bryce Morgan in which college girl Millicent gets a job looking after a sickly child named Johnny, who lives his life in an airtight suit. In order to try and improve Johnny's standings, she gives him some of her own experimental medication, which contains LSD. Give the kid acid! What could possibly go wrong? Well, as you can probably tell, Spoonful of Sugar is a ridiculous movie by its very nature. Its plot is so thinly tethered to reality that even the slightest gust of wind would send it careening off into the sky. But that doesn't stop it from being really good fun. Morgan really nails the psychedelic imagery needed to bring an LSD movie to life. The film is visually interesting, if nothing else, so on that front at least, you're guaranteed to have a good time. Number 9, Dark Glasses. In 2022, for the first time in a decade, legendary Italian horror director Dario Argento put out a brand new movie. This was Dark Glasses, which follows a sex worker who was blinded in an attack by a serial killer. With the help of a young boy she befriends, the hero must continue to evade her assailant's clutches whilst adapting to her lack of vision. Argento, who helped pioneer the giallo style of horror movies, never does things by the book, which pretty much always guarantees a good time regardless of how good the actual movie is. Dark Glasses is no exception. It's far from the icon's best work, but has enough wacky off-the-wall moments to keep even the harshest of critics entertained. Half the fun of an Argento movie is trying to figure out what was going on in his head when he decided on a shot, and there's plenty of that guessing game to be played here. A bloody, erotically tinged adventure that is not for the faint of heart, Dark Glasses is a great gateway for those looking to dip their toes in the Argento waters. Number 8, My Animal. Anyone who is still suffering from PTSD regarding Rue's death from the Hunger Games, look away now, as the actor who plays her is in this film. She plays Johnny, a figure skater in Jacqueline Castell's 2023 film My Animal. Johnny is the love interest of Heather, a young woman who is secretly a werewolf. Heather has had to keep her true self a secret for her whole life, away from the prying eyes of her controlling parents, but once she meets Johnny, she realizes that there is nothing wrong with being who she is. The queer coding is not subtle in this movie, but subtlety isn't always a good thing. It's refreshing to see two female characters in a romantic relationship on screen, especially in a horror context. My Animal doesn't nail its themes, it's actually a bit sloppy in places, but it's got its heart in the right place. Also, who doesn't love a good werewolf movie? Feels like Twilight really killed that genre off for a while, doesn't it? Number 7, The Pale Blue Eye. Based on the novel of the same name, The Pale Blue Eye was director Scott Cooper's 2023 follow-up to the massively popular Antlers. Was it as good? Well, no, but that was always going to be a tall order. Christian Bale stars as a rundown detective who is hired to investigate a mysterious death at the United States Military Academy. Since this is a historical fiction story, he gets some help from a young Edgar Allan Poe, played by Harry Potter and Queen's Gambit star Harry Melling. The Pale Blue Eye is a fun, moody mystery featuring the guy who played Dudley Dursley pretending to be Edgar Allan Poe. It leans into its historical concept nicely, whilst also introducing elements of the supernatural as the story progresses. It's not groundbreaking or anything, and some will see it as a step down for Cooper after the startling originality of his previous work. But as a piece of escapism set in a world full of characters you'll recognise, The Pale Blue Eye is fun for all the family. Okay, well, it's actually not. It's actually quite disturbing in places, but you get the idea. Number 6, My Best Friend's Exorcism. Abby and Gretchen are two high school besties who do everything together. Well, except get possessed by a ghost. It's only Gretchen who does that. This is the plot of My Best Friend's Exorcism, an Amazon Prime movie directed by Damon Thomas and released in 2022. It's adapted from a novel by Grady Hendrix, although this version leans more into the comedic side of the story, as a spirit-infested Gretchen runs riot throughout school with Abby attempting to bring her back to the light. There's more than a hint of Jennifer's body to this, which is not a bad thing as it combines all the fun of a teen drama with enough scares to keep things interesting. It's a little bit trashy, but that's okay, all the best teen movies are. With absolutely zero need to engage your brain with it on, My Best Friend's Exorcism is the perfect film to stick on if you just want to veg out and let some horror content enter your eyeballs. The main cast are decent, the plot is workable, and there's a scene involving Christian-themed bodybuilders. What more could you possibly ask for? Number 5, Studio 666. Dave Grohl of Nirvana and Foo Fighters fame has done pretty much everything there is to do in life, so it makes sense that in 2022 he and the rest of the Foos made their own horror film. Studio 666, directed by B.J. McDonnell and based on a story by Grohl himself, sees the band play fictionalized versions of themselves as they record a new album in a supposedly haunted mansion. Alongside the rockers, including the late Taylor Hawkins, there are also appearances from actual actors, Will Forte, Leslie Grossman and Jenna Ortega, Wednesday Addams and the Foo Fighters, a match made in literal heaven. This is not a serious movie at all. It is played 100% for laughs and most of those jokes land, although it is painfully obvious a lot of the time why these guys are famous musicians and not famous actors. If you go into Studio 666 expecting a horror classic, then prepare to be bitterly disappointed. However, if you go into it expecting a basic horror story with some very silly middle-aged men running around a decrepit old house, then that's exactly what you'll get. Number 4, Dashcam. This might be a tougher sell than anything else on this list, as Rob Savage's Dashcam is set during the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody is in any rush to relive that nightmare. Musician Annie Hardy plays a fictionalized right-wing version of herself traveling from LA to London to visit a friend. In the movie, Hardy is a live streamer, so the footage shown is entirely filmed on her phone and car dashcam, a move taken to immerse the viewer in her world. Dashcam tries a lot of fun tricks, and whilst it doesn't pull all of them off, it's still fun to see a filmmaker take some risks. Hardy is a really nasty character, maybe a bit too nasty, but fans of Schadenfreude will enjoy seeing her harassed and pursued by the creepy old lady who serves as the villain of the piece. Savage would go on to do better work. His next film, The Boogeyman, is also one to check out for a more well-known guilty pleasure, but Dashcam is definitely one of his most interesting pieces. Number 3, Slumber Party Massacre. After 31 years, the Slumber Party Massacre series was roused from its nap with a brand new installment for the Sci-Fi Channel. Slumber Party Massacre 2021 edition was presented as both a remake and a standalone sequel to the cult favourite, where a group of teenage girls have to fend off a drill-wielding maniac who invades their nighttime get-together. It frames the story through original character Trish, who serves as the mother of one of the new generation of driller-killer victims. Even with decades of hindsight, there was nothing anyone could do to make a film about a bloody sleepover anything more than a corny slasher flick. Nobody wants to see a gritty reboot of Slumber Party Massacre. What they wanted was an updated version that kept all the gory fun of the original, which is precisely what this incarnation offered. Number 2, Dawn of the Beast. Why aren't there more horror movies about Bigfoot? A group of hapless conspiracy nuts wandering through a secluded forest in search of a gigantic monster. I mean, that's literally the perfect setup for a horror. In 2021, director Bruce Wemple finally put these pieces together with the release of Dawn of the Beast, a Sasquatch-themed scarefest that took the basic premise of the Blair Witch Project and cast a big hairy beast in place of the ghost. A group of graduate students wander off into a forest in search of the legendary cryptid, and the good news is they find it. The bad news is that Bigfoot is actually a Wendigo, a bloodthirsty monster with an insatiable appetite who views his new human friends as walking, talking buffets. What follows is classic monster movie stuff. The students get hunted down and picked off, they come to terms with their situation after a healthy amount of self-soiling, and then they come up with a plan to take their opponent down. Is it groundbreaking? No, not at all. Is it enjoyable? Absolutely. In an era where creature features don't get the love they deserve, Dawn of the Beast is a great throwback. Number 1, Willy's Wonderland. After nearly a decade of living in production limbo, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie finally hit screens in 2023. Unfortunately, something else had beaten it to the punch 2 years earlier. Wilys Wonderland, directed by Kevin Lewis, stars Nicolas Cage as a cleaner who works a night shift at an old indoor amusement park. Once the sun goes down, he comes face to face with a series of animatronic creatures that have been possessed by evil spirits and must defeat them in order to survive the night. Sound familiar? The film wears its Five Nights at Freddy's inspiration boldly on its sleeve, embodying all of the over-the-top exuberance of that series. The creatures are utterly stupid, which somehow makes them more frightening, and the action is completely overblown, as one would expect from a Cage joint. There's also a lot of viscera, so don't watch this if you've just had your lunch. A proud callback to blood-soaked B-movies of old, Wilys Wonderland doesn't have a serious bone in its body, and that's what makes it so good. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie wishes it was as entertaining as this.